So as bass players, we're at a disadvantage straight away, immediately, and that's because we're playing a lower registered instrument. So for instance, if a guitar player plays a chord, it just, rings out nice jingly, piano player the same. If we play a chord on the bass, especially down in the lower register of the neck, we're always in danger of the mud, okay? So it's really easy to get a muddy sound on the bass. For instance, it just sounds a little bit muddy and there's no real definition. It kind of takes over the entire frequency register. So if you're playing chords like this in a band, it's just going to be too muddy and people aren't going to be able to hear the chords. They'll just hear a big, too much mud. So as bass players, we have to emit notes from the chords to make the chords sing out more, okay? And I'm going to show you some examples of that in a minute. And that's why we use open and closed chord voicings as well. And we will talk about that in a few lessons' time. But for instance, if a guitar player was to play an E chord, the notes, an open E chord down here, the notes on a guitar would be E, B, E, so that's two E's, G sharp, sorry, B, so that's two B's and another E. So you've got three E's and two B's all in one chord. But that sounds fine on guitar. It sounds great. On bass, that would just sound like mud. And that's why we have to start getting rid of notes out of the chord. So first of all, let's talk about what a chord consists of, okay? Now a chord generally consists of 3 or 4 notes. If it's a triad means 3, right? The chord consists of 3 notes. If it's a 7th chord, the chord generally consists of 4 notes. Now those notes, if it was a triad, would be root, 3rd and 5th of the scale. Okay, so let's take a C major scale. Okay, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Let's put a number to each one of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, to find the C major triad, that's a C major scale, to find the C major triad, we just get the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th note from that scale. So we've got C, E, G, and C. C, E, and G. 1st note, 3rd note, and 5th note, okay? And that gives us a C major triad. Now, what happens if we add a C major 7 chord, okay? We've got, again, it's just the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th note of the scale. Root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th note, which, well, it happens to be a C major 7 arpeggio. But how do we play that on bass, okay? Root, 3rd, 5th, 7. Could play it like that. Again, you'll hear that sounds incredibly muddy. How else could we play it? We could play it like this. So root, 3rd, up above there, 5th, and then 7. But again, that's a risk of sounding muddy. If I played it down here, or here even, so an F major 7, it's just sounding too muddy. So what do? Well, we start getting rid of notes out of the chord, and that gives us a clearer, more open sound. That sounds a lot clearer than. And all I've done is got rid of the 5th. Now, the 5th in every chord, so in a major chord, in a minor chord, in a dominant chord, the 5th is the note that is least powerful. It's the least important note, because obviously the root note's important because it's the root. It's nice to have that in there. If you're using inversions and things like that, you can get rid of the root, but we're going to talk about that later on in this course. But for now, just think the root's important, right? So the root's important. Is the third important? Yes, the third is important because it tells us whether the chord is major or minor. If it has a major third, it's major. Has a minor third, sounds sad. So the major and the minor, it gives us that happy or sad vibe about the chord, okay? So the thirds are important. Roots and thirds. Are the fifths important? Not really. Not really. They're very neutral sounding if they haven't got an extension attached to them. Now I'm just going to revisit that in a minute. And the seventh of the chord, is that, does that have a lot of characteristic to it? Yes, it does. So let's take this chord for instance. C major 7. C dominant 7. Yeah, it changes the quality of the chord completely. C minor 7. All I'm changing there is the third. So now we know that roots, thirds and sevenths are very important, and the fifths are kind of neutral. So if we're going to get rid of a chord tone out of the four that we've got, root, third, fifth and seven, the fifth is the one that has to go. Now there is certain circumstances where you'd keep the fifth, and that is if you have a flat 5 or a sharp 5 chord. So for instance, if it was a C minor 7 flat 5 chord, you'd want to reference that in your chord. So then in those circumstances, you'd have to think, okay, well, do I want to play everything in the chord? Do I want to play the root, the third, the flat 5 and the 7? Or can I get rid of, one of the notes? And in that case, I'm going to go through all these shapes here, so don't try and catch the shapes really I'm playing right now, because in the next 2 lessons I'm going to take you through these specific shapes. But this one, for instance, I'm playing root, flat 5 and flat 7. So I've decided to get rid of the third out of there because I'm trying to clear up the sound of the chord. I'm trying to get rid of that just to give us a clearer voicing on the chord. So when you're looking at chords, always be thinking, okay, which notes can I get rid of? And I'm actually going to show you the shapes, so I've done all the thinking for you. But what I want to do in this, just with this lesson, I want you to kind of justify why I'm doing what I'm doing, so you understand exactly why I'm doing it, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it. So in this lesson, I've covered why we're at a disadvantage as bass players. Okay, we're playing a lower registered instrument. In the band, when we're playing, if we play full chords like that, we're in risk of creating a lot of muddy frequencies, that will just create a lot of noise. So what we have to do as bass players is figure out which notes to get rid of out of the chords so they sound much clearer and open and complement the band instead of making it sound like mud. Okay, so that's what we've covered, and I also covered in this lesson which notes to get rid of out of the chords. So generally, when we're playing these types of chords, which I'm going to be covering over the next few lessons, you'll be getting rid of the fifths unless the fifth is altered. So whether it's a flat 5 or a sharp 5, then we will reference that in our chord and make sure that we're taking care of that extension, of that alteration of the fifth. In the next lesson, we're going to be discussing the shapes of the chord and showing you how to harmonize through scales and cool stuff like that. So I'll see you in the next lesson.